Tell me about how it was you came about being in the service. Were you drafted? Did you enlist?
No, I enlisted in 1948. I don't know, after World War II, there was a lot of patriotism in the country, and I think an awful lot of young people enlisted between the end of World War II and the beginning of the Korean War. The patriotism in the young generation at that time was just tremendous.
So you joined the Marines?
I joined the Marines.
Because everything else was full, or just?
No, just wanted to be a Marine.
I have to get my Marine dig in every time I see him, or else. June of 1950.
That's right.
Where were you?
I was at Camp Lejeune, North Carolina, when the Korean War started. We knew we would be going eventually, but we didn't know when. As it turned out, we didn't leave until the middle of August.
How long was it from when you arrived in country in Korea until you were engaging the enemy?
The first day. Made the Incheon landing on the west side of the Korean Peninsula. And we landed behind the enemy because they had already moved down to the bottom of the peninsula, and they were pretty well winning the war at that time. But when we landed behind them, we cut their throat near the supply line, and that was the North Korean army. That was not the
Right.
Chinese at that time.
Right.
And we literally beat the bejesus out of the North Koreans.
And then in November of 1950, November, Thanksgiving.
That's right. The day after Thanksgiving, November 27th, I believe, was the date. We had chased the North Korean army all the way back into North Korea and chased them all the way up almost to the Yalu River, which was the border between Korea and Manchuria. And at that point, we had a lovely Thanksgiving dinner, and following night, the Chinese hit us. There was about 15,000 Marines and 15,000 Marines from the 1st Division, about 3,000 Army from the 7th Division, and a few hundred Royal Marine Commandos. When the Chinese hit us, they cut us off. We were completely surrounded. Temperature averaged about 30 below zero.
How quick was that attack by the Chinese that they were able to? I mean,
It was almost overnight. Almost overnight. Our division was split up, and we were in 3 different little villages. And when they hit us, they cut us off in each one of these little villages. And they kept us surrounded for quite a few days. The first people up in the first village had to fight their way back to the second. That's where I was. When they got there, then we had to fight our way back to the third one. It was hectic. As I said, the temperature averaged 30 below zero. Snow, wind. The wind was terrible. Today they estimate it was like 75-degree wind chill factor.
And surrounded, how constant was their attack? Artillery, small arms?
Mortars. They didn't have any artillery. And all their attacks took place at night because we controlled the air during the day. Thank God to that.
What kind of casualties were you taking?
Excuse me?
What kind of casualties were you taking?
Of the roughly 19,000 troops up there, I guess we lost about 700 dead, over 4,000 wounded. Almost everyone had frostbite. Conditions were horrendous. We built an airstrip at Hagaru, it's the town where I was. I was with the engineers. We built an airstrip there. I think they wanted it 5,000 feet long. I think we got about 2,500 feet. But thank God for the Air Force. They flew in C-54s, 2-engine planes, to evacuate. And they evacuated over 4,000 wounded. When the wounded were all evacuated, then they started taking out the dead. But they didn't get all the dead out. We brought them back.
You recall the Chosin,
Yes.
did you retreat across the reservoir, or did you move across?
No,
It was frozen, right?
oh, it was frozen solid. It was frozen solid. The Army, the 3,000 Army guys who went up the east side of the reservoir took horrendous casualties, terrible casualties, but they inflicted many casualties on the Chinese. And I think the sacrifice they made on the east side saved us at Hagaru, because the Chinese would have come right down into town.
It was in fact so cold that you couldn't dig into the ground
Oh, of course not.
for any cover.
Fortunately, I was an engineer, so I had exposure to explosions, explosives, so I could blow a hole in the ground. But that was where we lived. We lived in a hole in the ground. There were a few tents, warming tents for the wounded and for the medical services, but not too much cover.
November 25th through December 6th is about the time
It
frame.
was about a 2-week battle from the time they left the first village and made it all the way down, and then we made it all the way out to the ocean. We picked up by the Navy.
Now, the remarkable thing, one of the remarkable things about this story, in my estimation, is as the American forces are trying to move south away from the Chinese, and as they're trying to bring their own wounded, and as they're trying to bring their own dead, and as they're trying to bring their own, those that are still living, they are joined by thousands and thousands of
North Koreans. Over 100,000 joined us on the march out. And when they got down to the ocean, I don't know where the Navy dug up some of these ships. They were just a wreck. But we took out 100,000 North Koreans,
who
men,
wanted to,
women, and children.
who wanted to escape their own
Exactly right.
country. 100,000. That's amazing.
It is. It really is.
54,000 some odd Americans killed in Korea. June 1950.
That's the figure that they put out. I think it's a little bit less than that, though.
June 1950 through July 53.
Did I mention, I don't think I did, of the 17,000 or 18,000 Allied troops that were in North Korea there? The Chinese number was about 120,000.
What did you guys survive on in that cold?
Tootsie Rolls. We lived on Tootsie Rolls for 3 consecutive days. Everything was so frozen. And the Air Force again dropped food, and there was an awful lot of Tootsie Rolls. The food was just too frozen. You couldn't thaw it. Can't build fires, so on and so forth.
The Tootsie Rolls you could put under
Oh,
your
yeah,
arm.
Stick them under your armpit. And let
True
'em thaw.
story, to keep them soft, so you'd actually be able to eat them.
That's right.
When
Yeah.
it gets a little cold outside, do you ever flash back to that?
Yes, I do. Yes, I do. As I said, we all suffered from some degree of frostbite. My feet are a mess. My hands are a mess.
But you should see the other guy.
Yeah.